E mihana pia koutou, koutou te kikomi ki whakahaere, I runga I te hawatanga o tēnei kaupapa norere, e mihana pia koutou katoa. My name is Clark Pitika, and I speak today as chairperson of Te Pumautanga o Te Arawa, representing 30,431 beneficiaries. Our organisation, a post-settlement governance entity, for 11 Iwi Hapu of Te Arawa, strongly opposes the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi Bill. We firmly believe this bill should never have seen the light of day. I appreciate the opportunity to present my oral submission to the Select Committee. While I will avoid repeating the kōrero already delivered more eloquently around the technical components of the treaty and the principles bill by iwi and hapu leaders, politicians, both past and present, academics, rangatahi, and everyday New Zealanders who oppose this bill, I may reference their insights to reinforce key points. So, my kōrero will focus on two key issues, both of which reference a document written by Ministry of Justice officials as the advising agency to the Associate Minister of Justice, David Seymour. This document being the regulatory impact statement, providing certainty on the treaty principles, raises critical concerns. And I'm mindful of the submission from one of the speakers earlier on around the rigour, or perhaps the non-rigour, with regards to the process. So, point one, the impact on treaty settlements, both those already completed and those still in progress. And point two, the flawed process by which this bill was introduced to Parliament, affirming that it's a waste of time and resources. Point one. We're aware that the concept of treaty principles was first introduced by Parliament in the Treaty of Waitangi Act 75. While Parliament did not initially define these principles, it created a framework for the courts and the Waitangi Tribunal to do so. These principles have since served a critical purpose, and we believe they should continue to be articulated by the courts and the Tribunal, in accordance with existing legislation and practice. Currently, Te Tiriti principles appear in 40 pieces of legislation, ranging from simple acknowledgements to active implementation. Some of these are embedded in our own affiliate Te Arawa Iwi and Hapu Claims Settlement Act of 2008. This bill is not an isolated action. It is part of a broader policy agenda by the coalition government to weaken the constitutional status of Te Tiriti Waitangi. Other proposed changes, such as the Regulatory Standards Bill and the Resource Management Act rewrite, indicates a systematic effort to remove these references from significant legislation. Further, Principle 2 of this bill seeks to confine Māori rights and interests solely to treaty settlements, disregarding Article 2 of the Tiriti, which guarantees collective Māori rights. So if this bill is enacted, future treaty settlements would be assessed under the bill's redefined principles, likely resulting in outcomes that differ from past settlements. This is unjust, this is unacceptable. Moreover, the so-called 6-month select committee process presented as national conversation is deeply flawed. The treaty partner was not consulted. Any agreement between two parties should only be amended with mutual consent. Te Pumautanga o Te Arawa affirms that Te Tiriti represents an agreement between two sovereign nations. The courts have already developed treaty principles in alignment with its articles, and this work should remain in their jurisdiction. This flawed process is being driven by a minor coalition party that received only 8.6% of the vote. It is inappropriate for them to claim the mandate to lead this conversation, especially after ensuring Māori were deliberately excluded from the outset. How dare the authors of this bill presume to know what is best for me and my people, and the hundreds of thousands who marched to the steps of Parliament only months ago, delivering a clear message to Te Tiriti. The 11 iwi and hapu that formed Te Pumautanga o Te Arawa negotiated a settlement with the Crown based on trust and cooperation. That settlement was carried on the backs of our koroua, kuia, our uncles, our aunties, many of whom are no longer with us, and it's our duty to uphold their legacy. This bill undermines not only what our tūpuna fought for, but also the integrity of future settlements. For my second point, the flawed process behind this bill. The introduction of this bill was procedurally unsound, and we call for its immediate dismissal. Sir Geoffrey Palmer, in his submission, stated that the process that led to this bill's introduction was fundamentally flawed, compared with the processes that are used for legislation customarily in your House. He further noted, orthodox policy processes for a bill like this would typically require in-depth analysis before decisions were made. Policy options would be assessed, interdepartmental consultation would take place, and crucially, Māori would be consulted. Instead, what we have seen is a bill that has clogged up the House with over 300,000 submissions, wasted an extraordinary amount of time and money, and damaged the collective fabric of our nation. This is what happens when proper legislative processes are ignored. A policy process does not begin with a bill, it ends with one. That is the fundamental flaw of this bill considered legislation. And it was important for me to raise this again because those words of Sir Geoffrey Palmer resonated. And to our way of thinking, he was on the money. The contradictions here are striking. The government claims to prioritise fiscal responsibility, efficiency and resource management, yet the administration of this flawed process likely costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, I don't know. And this bill has consumed valuable time and energy that could have been better spent addressing genuine issues facing this country. So in closing, Prime Minister Luxon himself is on record stating, we don't agree with this bill. Treaty issues are complex and you don't negate with a stroke of a pen 184 years of debate and discussion with a bill that is very simplistic. Yes, we're supporting it to its first reading, but beyond that, we're not supporting it for those reasons. This flawed process rests squarely on the shoulders, my words, on the shoulders of Associate Minister David Seymour and Prime Minister Luxon, who allowed it to drag on as long as it has. So our call to action with regards to this, and I'm again going to refer to my submission here, we reaffirm our recommendations to the Justice Select Committee to withdraw the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi Bill immediately and urge the Prime Minister, you the Select Committee, urge the Prime Minister to honour his constitutional obligations above the coalition agreement. He must keep his word and ensure this bill does not proceed to a second reading or become law. Nō reira, e te komiti whakahaere, we implore you to do the right thing, withdraw this bill. E mihi ana kia koutou.
No, thank you, Clark. We've got a very short period of time if anyone had a very brief question. No, look, can I say really good submission, and thank you for your written submission as well. It's really appreciated and powerfully put as well. You can be proud.
Tēnā koutou.
Members, we've got a couple of minutes.
I don't know what I could comment on that one.
Yeah, look, it was beautiful kororo, actually very powerful, and I really appreciate the sentiments that were put forward in that as well. It was more or less an affirmation of what was presented beforehand by the chairman, Mr. Mark Steele, just in terms of process and best practice and questions around this fundamentally flawed process that we've gone through, and you have to question the motivations behind that. When something doesn't go through the usual channels, we wonder why. Particularly when it's been driven, by certain people. So, yeah, wonderful commentary included in that. I think I just let that sit and resonate again.
Yeah. Okay.
Definitely, lack of consideration and collaboration is a very, very common theme. Nearly everyone we've talked to has spoken on that. So
Yes.
It's indicative that, there's something really, really wrong with how this was rolled out.
Yes. Okay. Keith Rowell, I think.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to our Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok. Who's got the order paper podcast?